now we'll talk about vinyasa flows and move through your flow and all of that stuff. So we did the first half of it. The first half is mountain pose. Inhale, arms lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. So for the full sun salutation, A, or vinyasa flow, from forward fold, you plant your hands firm on the mat underneath the shoulders and step each foot back to a plank position. And this is your average plank. So the shoulders are right over the wrists. The heels reach back as the crown of the head reaches forward. The navel pulls into the spine and the space between the shoulder blades, the back of the heart lifts. If this is too difficult, bring those knees down to the ground. Untuck the toes. Keep the same sensations. Keep the navel pulled into the spine. Keep lifting the back of the heart. Now, it's really important that you stay firm in your hands. Strong hands takes the pressure out of the wrists. If you have weak hands, your wrists are going to take on all of that weight. So root down in these parts of your hands. The base of your thumb, the base of your pinky, and the heel of your hand. The base of your pointer finger too. So feeling every point around your palms, pushing into the ground. Feel each fingertip push into the ground as well. Someone said this once and I really liked it. Imagine you have a butterfly under the palm of your hand and you're trying to keep it alive. So everything, you get this suction-like grip. It's called your hasta bandha. It's a suction-like grip against the mat, pushing into the base of the fingers, the tips of the fingers, keeping that the whole time. Just practice that. You can even just sit on the floor and push the points of your hands into the ground. It's the same thing as what we did with the feet. When we do positions with our hands on the ground, that becomes part of our base. So we need our base and our foundation to be strong in order for the pose to work. So if you're in your modified plank, knees are on the ground, tops of the feet root into the ground, navel pulls into the spine, tailbone is still reaching toward the back, crown of the head is still reaching toward the front. And then this is modified chaturanga. So you bend your elbows. We're not doing a push-up where the elbows come out to the sides. You're bending your elbows alongside your ribs. For chaturanga, your elbows stop at the ribs and you hold this. Keep pushing into the points of the hands. And then you push back up. That's a chaturanga. That's modified chaturanga. Full chaturanga is the same thing from plank, stopping at the ribs. So know where you're at. It took me years to be able to do a full chaturanga. I still can't do it fully every day. Practice, 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 practice. So if modified chaturanga is too difficult, if all of this is just like, no way, tabletop. Come into tabletop. Hips are over your knees. Shoulders are over your wrists. You can use a mirror to help you out. You can record yourself, see where you're at. Look between the thighs. Toes are hidden behind the thighs. And same thing as in a halfway lift, a really flat back. From tailbone through the back of the neck and crown of the head. Same thing, reaching into these points on your fingers, on your hands, your hasta bandha. Root down in the tops of the feet and the shins. This can be instead of plank. If this is hard on your knees, you can put a blanket underneath the knees. You can double up your mat. There's many options. So if you're in your modified plank, you can lower halfway or just come down all the way, bringing yourself down to lay on your belly. From here, you can take a baby cobra. Inhale to lift your heart. You don't want to put pressure in your hands. You want it so that your hands can slide or lift off of the mat. They're not really there to push you. just there for extra support. Shoulder blades drawing together down the back. Heart lifts off the mat. Chin stays tucked so that the spine stays long. Root down in your pelvic floor. At the same time, release any holding in the glutes. Let the glutes be soft. Root down in your big toes and the tops of your feet. This is your baby cobra. And the thing is, if the glutes are tight here, you can try it, but it creates a pinching sensation in the low back. At least in my body it does. So I release the glutes. I push down the pelvic floor, or that pelvic bone. I push the pelvic bone into the mat. And this is a lengthener as it's also a slight back bend. So focus on feeling the space between the toes and the tip of your head, stretching away from each other, getting longer. And then exhale and release. So keeping the elbows close to the ribs, pulling the navel up to the spine, pushing the ground away from you. You'll come up through your either tabletop or your modified plank, tuck your toes and lift your hips, downward facing dog. So now we'll talk about downward facing dog, which is the kind of the home base for many practices. You can bend your knees a lot to start. Focus on lifting the hips as high as you can. Down dog is a spine lengthener. So feel the weight evenly distributed between the 4 points touching the floor. Feel the biceps pulling in and up, eyes of the elbows facing toward each other. Still rooting into the hands. And maybe the heels are lifted and the knees are bent and you're just lifting the hips as high as you can. You can start here. And then slowly, this is called walking out your dog, you let each heel reach toward the mat, finding a little bit of movement. And then maybe you find some stillness. The heels reach toward the ground, belly's pulling up to the spine, hips are lifting as high as you can. Breathing, the gaze is between the feet. Neck is relaxed, face muscles are relaxed. Downward facing dog. Nice stretch down the backs of the legs. Nice length in the spine. 4 points that are touching the floor are even. Now bend the knees, look up between the hands, and walk your feet up to meet your hands. Let your feet move from the core. The core lifts each foot up and forward. Halfway lift as you inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart center. So oftentimes in class, you will hear move through your flow, move through your vinyasa, and this is different for everyone. I used to hear people say that the flows are optional and pick your own flow, but I had no idea what it meant, you know, so I'm hoping to explain this to you here so that you don't have to go through the kind of confusion stage. If you're maybe recovering from an injury or a little bit older, your body doesn't move how you want it to move, if you find yourself thinking that a lot, like you want your body to do something and there's a disconnect, there's ways that you can move through a flow without doing all of that stuff. So we did the first part already, that you can stay here with the first half of a flow, where you stand in your mountain pose, you inhale the arms up, you exhale, hinge at your hips, forward fold, you inhale, halfway lift, you exhale, you fold, and then you inhale, rise all the way up, exhale, hands to heart center. That is a flow. That is moving your body with your breath. You're expanding as you inhale and condensing as you exhale. That's a flow. So you can stay there and feel totally fine with that. I'll show you another version of a flow that's a little bit easier if you want to work toward getting plank or modified plank, and you're just not quite there yet, I'll show you this version you can practice. So you'll stand in your mountain pose, do the same thing we've been doing, inhaling up, exhaling and fold. Inhale, half lift, and release. Plant your hands, step back to a tabletop. Shoulders are over the wrists, hips are over the knees, fingers are spread wide, pointers are facing forward, pinkies are slightly out, rooting into the same base of the hands. The toes are hidden behind the thighs when you look back between the legs, rooting into the tops of the feet and the shins, core is activated, flat line from the tailbone through the back of the neck and crown of the head. This is your tabletop. If down dog sucks, if you hate it, if your body does not like it, this can be your down dog. You can be in a class and every time they say push back downward facing dog, you can just come here. This is fine. And instead of taking your baby cobra, here what you would do is inhale to your cow pose. Cow pose, you drop the belly down, lift the gaze up, lift the tailbone. Feel the pelvic floor tilt away from the navel. Slight micro bend in the elbows. The heart is pulling forward and through. The chin lifts away from the sternum. Shoulder blades draw together down the back. Cow pose. Exhale to your cat pose. Pull the navel to the spine. Tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone. Lift the back of the heart. Pelvic floor tucks in toward the navel. And you feel like you're pushing the ground away from you. Cat pose. So you can do this a few times. You can inhale to your cow, exhale to your cat, and you can even switch up the breath if you want to try out exhaling to a cow and inhaling to a cat, or just closing the eyes, moving how you want to move, wagging the tail, looking back toward either hip, rolling out the shoulders and the hips. It can be really fun to just start your practice. If you're practicing by yourself, just putting on some music and coming into your tabletop and moving, closing the eyes, letting the body move by itself. This is a really nice way to practice letting the body move, because you'll find that you don't even have to think about it, but your body will just start moving in ways that feels good. And your body's your best teacher, so listening as often as you can. So if you're adding tabletop into your flow, you will come down to your tabletop, inhale to cow, exhale to cat, inhale back to center, step each foot between the hands, one at a time. You can grab it with your hand, come back up, half lift, exhale, fold, inhale, root to rise, exhale, hands to heart center. So that can be your vinyasa flow. I will show you what I believe is the next step up from there. I'm sure there's plenty of versions of flows you can think of that will work. I'm just going to show you the ones that I've used before. This is actually how I got to a full vinyasa flow, is these things I'm showing you. I started with just standing and moving with my breath, inhaling up, exhaling, folding, all that. Then I went into tabletop, started adding that to the flow, and now I'll show you the next step up. So you inhale the arms up, exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, exhale, fold. Plant the hands down, step back, plank position. Let the knees come down, modified plank. Holding here. If you want to get to plank, this is where you start. Feel the core activate. And then bend the elbows alongside the ribs slowly, making sure to keep pushing down in the hands each inch on your way down. And then letting yourself come to the mat. Inhale, lift the heart, baby cobra. Exhale, release. Inhale, push yourself back up, modified plank. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, downward facing dog. 2 breaths here. Bend the knees, look forward, step up, halfway lift. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart center. So I practiced my vinyasa flow just like that for 3 years, about, before I actually got my full chaturanga, which I didn't think was ever going to happen, but just keep doing it every day. You'll be shocked at what your body's capable of. So now I'll show you the full version of a vinyasa flow that I practiced it at. There are more advanced versions after this, which involve hopping and jumping. I just don't feel comfortable with that yet in my practice. But if that's something that interests you guys to hear more about, just let me know and I will go over it. So starting in your mountain pose, we'll move through a full vinyasa flow. Inhale, both arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release. Plant your hands. Inhale, back to plank. Exhale, lower halfway, chaturanga dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. So this is a new pose now. Upward facing dog. Tops of the feet are pushing into the mat. Tops of the legs are hovering. The arms are firm on the mat. They're strong. The hands are firm on the mat. The arms are strong. The heart is pulling forward and through. The shoulder blades are drawing together down the back. You can even look over each shoulder, dipping your hips off to the side. That can feel really nice. But this is a strong pose. Stay strong in the hands. And then pull the navel up to the spine. Lift the hips, roll over the toes. Downward facing dog. 3 breaths here. And then bend the knees, look forward, step up, halfway lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, root to rise, reach up. And exhale, hands to heart center. So everything we just went over is different versions of Sun Salutation A. Anytime you hear a teacher say, move through your flow or flow it out or move through your vinyasa, these are different ways that you can move through that that's safe for you. So I really encourage you to take some time to figure this out for yourself. Try out these different versions I've laid out for you. Maybe try something different. Maybe look up other ways that people teach vinyasa flows. These are the ways that I've practiced. These are the ways that have helped me get to where I am in my practice today. Be very patient with yourself. If you're just starting out yoga, don't go for the full chaturanga and the up dog. I mean, you can try whatever you want to try, obviously, but be safe, be optimistic but realistic. And one thing I want to say before I forget, it's better to practice 5 minutes of yoga every day than it is to practice 1 hour once a week. Getting your body used to a routine of moving and breathing daily is going to be the biggest help on your yoga journey. And then gradually adding time to that. So maybe today you practice 5 minutes in the morning, just sitting and breathing. Maybe tomorrow you practice 6 minutes, sitting, breathing, moving your arms. Maybe the next day you add in the legs, and you just keep gradually increasing what you're doing or sticking with what you've been doing and not being realistic with your commitment to yourself. Don't say, I'm going to practice yoga an hour every single day if that's not realistic for you. maybe it's better to say 10 minutes. Know what you're capable of, know what's realistic for you, and commit yourself to that. And it's a very important thing that yoga has taught me is to accept your starting point. If you don't accept that you have tight hamstrings, how are you supposed to get them looser? You have to understand where your personal weaknesses are in order to improve them. It's just like in anything in life. If you don't accept that your plants need water, then you're not going to water them, you know? So it works in all areas of life, just like this. I encourage you to take some time to figure out where you are, what feels good in your body, what doesn't feel good in your body, how, like where you want to be in your practice. And the best place to be when you're practicing yoga is a little bit challenged, but not, you don't want to be taking a class or listening to a teacher teaching headstands and arm balances if you can't do chaturanga. You want to be challenged just enough so that you have things to work toward, but you can still do the practice. So I will be posting a ton more beginner series videos here on YouTube. If you're brand new to yoga, I really hope that this page is helpful to you. I hope that I explain things in a clear way that you can understand them internally, and feel the difference of being active in a pose and not being active, of having correct alignment and not having correct alignment. I hope that you can learn how to feel these things in your own body, because that's going to teach you the best. It doesn't do you much good for someone to tell you how it's supposed to be if you can't feel that that's how it's supposed to be. And that just takes some practice and doing things the right way, doing things the wrong way, feeling the difference. Really take some time and energy to reflect on each pose and how it feels. This will set your practice up with a really strong foundation. And just being patient and consistent will get you incredibly far. I am creating a Patreon page that will launch in the middle of June, and it will have longer classes, it will have longer meditations, and it'll go deeper into yoga philosophy. So the physical postures of yoga are really just a doorway into the mental benefits of yoga, which benefits everything. And if you sign up to be a patron, I'm really hoping that I can introduce you to some concepts, show you some practices, show you some different ways to think about different situations that will be able to help you throughout your entire life. The practice of yoga is a complete reflection on the inner world you got going on in there. So if you have a pretty busy mind and can't really focus on one thing, you'll probably find that in your practice, you practice for 5 minutes and then do something else, you know, or you start practicing for a week or two and then you fall off. So paying attention to these things is incredibly beneficial to ourselves. And when we can see what our weaknesses are, see where we can improve, that's the first step to improving. So I'll be posting plenty of more beginners content on this YouTube. And if you'd like to go deeper into the practice, if you want to explore more about yoga philosophy and have longer practices, longer meditations, and just get more of this content, I really hope you sign up to be a patron. I hope that it gives you some sort of tangible practice that you can bring with you to every single thing you do in life. Because that to me is the real practice of yoga. It's relatively easy to set up your space, be on a mat, get into your zone, be present with yourself, be with your breath, be with your body. People can do that. And if that's hard, you can practice and it can get easier. But the real test comes in your everyday life. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when there's a pandemic happening. So these are the real tests where yoga can actually be applied and actually benefit your life. practicing patience, acceptance, trust, and love. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if there's anything that I haven't covered that you want to go over. If there's anything you're very curious about, you want to explore deeper, please just let me know. This is what I'm doing now, so I'm always looking for things to go off of. So I think that's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for watching the Mind Body Reset Beginner Series. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave any questions or comments below. Keep watching to learn more.